Welcome to Coffee Break. Thoughtful conversations for a busy world. Let's begin.
Think of the biggest goal you have right now. Like the one you're waiting for the quote-unquote perfect time to start.
Oh yeah, we all have at least one of those.
Right. Maybe it's a career pivot or a creative project or even just a really hard conversation you've been putting off for months.
Those are usually the ones we delay the most.
Exactly. But what if I told you that this feeling of waiting for the right moment, that sense of being prudent and careful, is actually just a highly sophisticated lie?
A total fabrication.
Yeah, a lie your brain is telling you to ensure you never, ever have to face the vulnerability of actually doing the thing.
It really is the ultimate disguise, isn't it?
It really is.
We wrap our fear up in this really socially acceptable language of, preparation and timing.
Right.
And we completely fool ourselves into thinking we're making progress. But in reality, we're just totally paralyzed.
And that's exactly the terrain we are navigating today. We're taking a highly focused look at a piece of source material that fundamentally shatters how we think about ambition, about starting, and really the illusion of readiness.
Yeah, it's a powerful one.
And the most fascinating part about our source today is actually its length. I mean, we aren't dissecting a 300-page academic textbook today.
No, not at all.
Or some massive longitudinal psychological study. We are anchoring this entire deep dive on one single, profoundly dense sentence.
Just one sentence.
Yeah, from a piece titled The Myth of the Perfect Moment. It's literally just 12 words.
And those 12 words pack a punch.
They really do. Here is the core text. Quote, "The perfect moment is a story you tell to stay stuck." Unquote.
Wow. I mean, those 12 words carry an enormous amount of psychological weight.
They force a complete paradigm shift, really.
Exactly. Because if we accept the premise of that sentence, we have to confront this really uncomfortable reality.
Which is?
That waiting for the stars to align isn't a strategy at all. It's a high-level stall tactic.
A stall tactic. I love that phrasing.
Right. And it brings us to the central thesis we really need to explore today, which is that the sensation of being ready is a complete illusion.
An illusion, okay.
We treat readiness as this absolute prerequisite for action. But the reality, and I mean the mechanics of human behavior totally bear this out, is that readiness is just a byproduct.
A byproduct of the action.
Yes. It only materializes after you have already crossed the starting line.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we want to understand why a completely rational human being would purposefully stall their own success, we really have to look closely at the language here.
The specific words matter so much.
They do. The author doesn't call it the mistake of the perfect moment, or the miscalculation. They deliberately call it a myth.
And that specific word choice, I mean, that's where the entire concept hinges.
How so?
Well, when we use the word myth in just casual conversation, we usually just mean something that's factually incorrect.
Like the myth that you swallow 8 spiders a year in your sleep or whatever.
Right, exactly. But in a cultural or anthropological sense, a myth is infinitely more powerful than just a simple error.
Because it's shared.
Exactly. It's a foundational shared narrative. It's this deeply entrenched belief system that an entire society perpetuates to basically explain how the universe is supposed to work.
So by labeling the perfect moment a myth, the source is really elevating this from just an individual quirk to a massive systemic deception.
Yes. We are conditioned to revere the perfect moment from the time we're, old enough to consume media.
Oh, absolutely. You see it in cinema all the time.
Right. The protagonist finally confesses their love, or they launch their brilliant invention, but only when the musical score swells and the rain stops.
And all the external circumstances are just flawlessly arranged.
Flawlessly. And we see it in these sanitized business biographies too, right? Where the narrative is totally smoothed over in retrospect.
So for sure. The messy, chaotic, panicked reality of building a startup is just rewritten.
Completely rewritten into the story of a visionary founder who just smartly waited for the exact perfect macroeconomic conditions before striking.
Which is never how it actually happened.
Never. But we absorb those sanitized, fictionalized timelines, and we internalize them as the standard operating procedure for success.
We think that's normal.
Right. And the danger of a societal myth is that it becomes, the invisible water we swim in.
I don't even notice it.
We don't. We start to implicitly believe that if our own circumstances feel chaotic, or if our budget isn't fully funded yet, or if we just feel a knot of anxiety in our stomachs.
When the universe is giving us a stop sign.
Exactly. The myth convinces us that friction is a signal to wait, when in reality, friction is just the unavoidable texture of entering any new territory.
Right. But okay, I get calling it a stall tactic, but calling it a high-level stall tactic feels like, I don't know, giving us a bit too much credit.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, isn't it just a fancy rationalization for plain old-fashioned laziness?
Well, see, laziness is actually a very different mechanism entirely.
Really?
Yeah, true laziness is low level. Like if you're sitting on your couch streaming television for 6 hours and you think, I should be working on my business plan, but I just don't feel like putting in the effort.
Right, that's laziness.
That's laziness. It's transparent. And crucially, it's usually accompanied by this low-grade sense of guilt.
Because you know you're avoiding the work.
Exactly. You know you're slacking. A high-level stall tactic, on the other hand, is insidious because it actively eliminates the guilt.
Oh, wow.
It masquerades as virtue.
Wears the clothes of productivity.
Precisely. You don't tell yourself you're avoiding the work. You tell yourself, well, I cannot write the first chapter of this book until I spend another 4 weeks cross-referencing historical data to ensure maximum accuracy.
Right. Or I can't launch this product until I've conducted 3 more rounds of focus groups to perfectly anticipate customer churn.
Exactly. You're doing things that look remarkably like work.
And you feel prudent.
You feel prudent, you feel intelligent and responsible, but really you are deploying a sophisticated defense mechanism to avoid the actual terrifying act of shipping the product or publishing the work.
All while maintaining this huge ego-boosting illusion that you're being a careful architect of your own destiny.
Yes.
I want to test an analogy here to see if it maps onto this high-level stalling concept.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so imagine you're sitting in the driver's seat of your car and you're parked in your driveway. The engine is running.
Okay, engine running.
And you have a very specific destination in mind across town, a place you genuinely want to reach.
Right.
But you absolutely refuse to shift the car into drive and pull onto the street until you can somehow digitally verify that every single traffic light between your house and your destination is currently green.
Oh, that's good.
And not just currently green, but will remain green for the entire duration of your journey.
That maps perfectly onto the absurdity of the perfect moment, especially regarding this illusion of control we crave. I mean, what is the actual outcome of that scenario?
Well, you just burn through a tank of gas in your own driveway.
Exactly.
You sit there with your hands on the steering wheel, you feel the vibration of the engine, you're listening to the radio, you are experiencing all the sensory inputs of being in a moving vehicle.
But your physical coordinates never change.
You're going absolutely nowhere.
And the brilliance of that analogy is what happens if a neighbor walks by. Say they tap on your window and ask why you haven't left yet.
You wouldn't say, oh, I'm lazy.
No. You would indignantly point at the horizon and say, I'm being a responsible driver. It isn't safe yet.
Right. Like, I read a report that the intersection at 5th and Main might have a yellow light right now.
I am mitigating risk.
Yeah.
You have successfully convinced yourself that paralysis is a form of superior planning.
But hold on, let me push back on this just a little bit.
Sure.
Because anyone who has ever built something sustainable, like a career or a house or a family, knows that reckless impulsivity is actually dangerous.
Oh, absolutely.
There has to be some inherent value in preparation. I mean, if I decide I want to climb a mountain, I don't just walk out my front door in flip-flops and start ascending.
No, that would be a terrible idea.
I buy gear. I study the route. I check the weather. So where exactly do we draw the line between foolish, impulsive action and this high-level stall tactic?
That is the crucial distinction to make, and it's where the source text is incredibly precise. Notice the quote doesn't say preparation is a story you tell.
Right. It specifically says the perfect moment.
Yes, it targets the perfect moment. The demarcation line between valid, necessary preparation and a stall tactic is defined by this concept of finitude.
Finitude.
Real preparation is finite. It has a boundary, a metric, and an expiration date.
Meaning it actually concludes.
Exactly. You create a budget for your new business. That's preparation. When the spreadsheet is populated, the preparation is over and the action begins.
You study the mountain road. When you have the map memorized, the preparation ends.
Yes. Waiting for the perfect moment, however, is infinite. Because perfection is mathematically and practically non-existent in human endeavor.
It's a moving target.
It's a horizon that constantly recedes the closer you get to it. If your standard is perfect, you will always, without fail, be able to find one more theoretical risk.
One more microscopic flaw.
One more reason why today is not the day.
So in the car analogy, the prepared driver checks their fuel gauge, make sure they have their license, and knows the general route. That is finite preparation.
Yes.
But the paralyzed driver is demanding an infinite guarantee of zero friction.
And the person demanding zero friction is fundamentally misunderstanding how progress works. I mean, the driver who actually reaches the destination accepts that they will hit red light.
They accept that there might be a detour or a sudden rainstorm or a pothole.
Exactly. They rely on their internal competence to navigate those obstacles as they arise, rather than demanding the universe remove the obstacles before they even start the engine.
Which brings up a really subtle but toxic element of this whole dynamic. The phrase we constantly use, waiting for the stars to align.
Oh, yeah.
It's essentially a linguistic trick to shift blame, isn't it?
It is an absolute abdication of agency. Think about what the stars aligning actually implies.
It implies magic almost.
It implies that your success, your momentum, your ability to execute your own ideas is entirely dependent on these colossal, external, astronomical forces over which you have zero influence.
It turns you into a passive spectator of your own life.
Precisely. It strips you of your internal locus of control. If you adopt the mindset that you're just waiting for the universe to grant you permission, then you are conveniently insulated from accountability.
Right. Because if months go by and your project is still just a folder on your desktop, you don't have to look in the mirror and say, I was too scared to publish.
No, you get to look at the sky and say, well, the timing just wasn't right.
The macroeconomic climate was hostile.
The algorithm shifted.
Yeah, exactly.
You cast yourself as the victim of poor cosmic timing, rather than the author of your own stagnation.
And if we're the ones writing these excuses, that perfectly bridges us into the psychological mechanics of the source text.
Let's get into it.
The quote specifically says, the perfect moment is a story you tell to stay stuck. I want to zero in on those words. A story you tell.
Very important phrasing.
Because usually when someone describes being stuck, they talk about it as an external affliction, like walking through the woods and stepping in a bear trap. I'm stuck.
Right.
Or driving and getting a tire bogged down in a snowdrift. I am stuck.
Yeah.
It's this objective reality imposed upon them by gravity or mechanics.
But the author uses the active verb tell. You are telling the story.
That completely reorients the dynamic.
It really does. Being stuck in your career or your relationships or your creative pursuits, it isn't a circumstantial misfortune that just randomly befell you.
No.
It is an architecture you are actively constructing and meticulously maintaining every single day through your own internal monologue.
You are the author, the narrator, and the sole captive audience of this narrative.
Exactly.
But why on earth would we do that? I mean, if we possess the agency to write the script of our own lives, why would we actively write a tragedy where the protagonist never actually leaves the starting line?
It seems counterintuitive.
What possible psychological benefit are we extracting from this?
We are extracting the ultimate psychological benefit, which is the absolute protection of the ego. The human ego is incredibly fragile, and its primary directive, its overriding biological mandate, really is self-preservation.
It wants to survive.
It wants to protect your self-concept from the excruciating psychological pain of failure or rejection or mockery, or even just the devastating realization of your own current limitations.
So it's a preempted defense system.
It is a fortress. Think about it. If you actually quit your job and launch the startup, the market might reject it. It might go bankrupt.
Right. If you ask the person out, they might look at you with pity and say no.
If you write the screenplay you've been talking about for 5 years, critics, or worse, your friends might read it and realize the dialogue is incredibly clunky.
Yeah, those are real, tangible threats to your self-image.
Huge threats. But if you never start
because the moment wasn't quote-unquote perfect, you never have to face the empirical data of your own imperfection.
Exactly. You get to maintain this pristine, unchallenged fantasy of your own limitless potential.
In the safety of your imagination, that unwritten screenplay is a guaranteed Oscar winner.
That unlaunched business is a disruptive Fortune 500 unicorn. The ego vastly prefers the warm, safe hallucination of what could be over the cold, messy, flawed reality of what actually is.
Here's where it gets really interesting for you, listening right now. Apply this to your own life.
Yes, think about it.
Think about that specific goal or project you've been actively delaying. What are the specific plot points of the story you are currently telling yourself to justify the delay?
Because if you look closely, you will find a highly structured narrative running on a loop in your head.
Is it the temporal milestone story? You know, the one where you say, well, I can't start this diet or this budget in the middle of October.
Oh, it's a classic.
I need to wait for the psychological clean slate of January 1st. Or maybe I'll make the career jump when I turn 40.
The temporal milestone is incredibly common because it feels like a genuine boundary. It makes logical sense to us.
It feels neat and tidy.
Right. But another really pervasive narrative is the resource fallacy.
Oh, tell me about that one.
This is the story where you convince yourself that external tools are the prerequisite for internal execution.
Okay, give me an example.
Like saying, I cannot possibly start a podcast until I invest $4,000 in a broadcast quality microphone, acoustic paneling, and a dedicated studio space.
Which is completely ridiculous because you could literally record a hit show on a smartphone in a closet full of winter coats if the content is good enough.
Exactly. But the resource fallacy isn't about the audio quality, is it?
No.
It's about the delay. It's about setting a financial or logistical hurdle so high that you have a completely valid excuse not to jump.
Right. And then there is the credential story.
Oh, yes.
The one that says, I can't write an article on this topic until I get a master's degree in the subject or until I read 20 more books by established experts.
We craft these incredibly detailed fictions, complete with character motivations and environmental constraints, and we genuinely believe them.
Which makes me want to ask about the hardware running this software.
Yeah.
I mean, are we inherently hardwired to tell ourselves these fictional stories just to stay comfortable?
It's a great question.
Is this just some evolutionary glitch we're dealing with?
It's not a glitch at all. It's actually an evolutionary feature that has simply outlived its original environment.
Really?
Yeah. To understand why we stall, we have to look at the amygdala. That's the primitive part of our brain responsible for processing fear and threat detection. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, on the ancestral savanna, our brains evolved to do two things above all else: conserve caloric energy and avoid unnecessary, unpredictable risk.
Because back then, risk meant physical death.
Precisely. If a prehistoric human was sitting safely in a cave and suddenly decided to wander out into unexplored territory at dusk without a perfectly guaranteed risk-free plan.
The consequence wasn't a bruised ego or a failed business venture.
No, the consequence was being eaten by an apex predator. Our nervous systems are literally wired to interpret uncertainty, novelty, and the unknown as physical, mortal danger.
Wow. So how does that ancient hardware react to our modern ambitions?
It reacts with total panic.
Total panic.
When you sit down at your laptop and contemplate starting a risky new venture, which represents massive social and financial uncertainty, your prefrontal cortex knows you are just typing words on a screen.
Right. It's intellectually safe.
But your primitive brain, your amygdala, flashes a massive biochemical warning sign. It triggers the sympathetic nervous system. It pumps cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream.
Like a fight or flight response.
Exactly. It screams, danger, unknown territory, potential for exile from the tribe, conserve energy, stay in the cave.
That explains so much. That's why staring at a blank page or a business plan can literally make your heart race or make you feel physically exhausted.
Yes. Your body is initiating a physiological freeze response.
Wow.
But because you are a modern, rational human being, you can't just tell yourself, well, I'm not going to write this email because a tiger might eat me.
Right. You'd sound insane.
Exactly. Your conscious brain needs a logical, socially acceptable rationalization for the physiological panic you are feeling.
And the modern cognitive translation of stay in the cave is the story.
Yes. You aren't ready yet. The moment isn't right. You need more data. The story is simply your intellect frantically trying to justify your biology's fear response.
That is absolutely mind-blowing. The elaborate excuse about needing more market research is literally just a localized translation of a caveman hiding from a rustling bush.
It is. And once you understand that neurological mechanism, the source text takes on a whole new level of utility.
How so?
Well, if you can step back and observe your own thoughts, if you can look at the text and truly absorb that your highly logical-sounding, perfectly reasonable excuses for waiting are, in fact, just fictional narratives engineered by your amygdala.
You unlock a massive opportunity for agency.
Exactly.
Because if it's just a story, you possess the editorial power to rewrite it.
You realize that the stuckness is not a life sentence imposed by the universe. It is a self-imposed psychological holding pattern.
You are simultaneously the warden, the architect of the cell, and the prisoner.
And the moment you recognize that the key has been in your own hand the entire time, The key being your conscious ability to change the internal narrative. The door to the cell swings wide open.
You can change the genre of your life. You can decide to stop writing a tragedy of endless, safe inaction and start writing a messy, unpredictable action adventure.
But to actually walk out of that cell, to step on the gas and drive out of the driveway, requires us to dismantle the final and most powerful component of the myth.
And what's that?
We have to address the actual sensation of readiness.
Okay. This brings us to the second major paradigm shift of our deep dive.
Yes.
Because if the perfect moment is a fictional construct designed to keep us safely hiding, what does the reality of making progress actually look like?
That's the question.
The fundamental truth that counteracts the myth is this. Ready is a feeling that only comes after you've started.
This completely inverts our entire societal understanding of motivation, inspiration, and action.
It really does.
It forces us to confront a massive cognitive error that almost every single human being makes on a daily basis.
The error of sequence.
The error of sequence or causality. We operate under the deeply flawed assumption that emotion must precede action.
Right.
We believe that we must feel a certain way before we can do a certain thing. We tell ourselves we must feel confident before we speak up in the meeting.
We must feel highly motivated before we go to the gym.
We must feel a divine spark of inspiration before we sit down to paint. We treat readiness as an emotional prerequisite that we have to wait around for.
Man, I am incredibly guilty of this.
We all are.
I will sit at my desk, staring at a blank document, literally waiting for inspiration to strike before I type a single word.
Yeah.
I treat inspiration like a localized weather event, as if a lightning bolt of pure creativity is going to crash through my office window, strike my keyboard, and physically compel my fingers to start moving.
And if we look at the reality of your workflow, how often does that meteorological event actually occur?
Basically never.
Exactly.
Usually what happens is I sit there, wait 10 minutes, feel no lightning bolt, and then open a new tab and start scrolling through the news.
Right.
I tell myself the story that my brain just isn't warmed up yet, or the muse isn't speaking to me today. I use the absence of the emotion as permission to avoid the action.
Because you are waiting for the internal environment to be perfect.
Yeah.
But the ultimate lesson we have to extract here is that action must precede emotion. The causality flows in the exact opposite direction of what we've been taught.
That's profound.
You do not feel ready and therefore start. You start, and therefore, through the act of doing, you gradually generate the feeling of readiness.
The friction of starting is the exact mechanism that generates the momentum.
It helps to look at this through the lens of physics, actually.
Okay, physics. Let's do it.
Specifically, the difference between static friction and kinetic friction.
Right.
In physics, static friction is the force that keeps a stationary object at rest. Kinetic friction is the force that resists the motion of an object that is already moving.
Okay.
And the universal rule is that the coefficient of static friction is always significantly higher than kinetic friction.
Meaning it takes way more energy to push a parked car to get it rolling than it does to keep a rolling car moving.
Exponentially more energy. The hardest, most agonizing part of any endeavor is simply overcoming that initial inertia.
And that makes total sense.
When you are sitting at your desk waiting to feel motivated, you are trapped in static friction. The amount of mental energy required to overcome the fear of the blank page is immense.
But when you force yourself to take the action,
When you type just one terrible, poorly constructed sentence, you break the static friction. You create kinetic energy.
you prove to your brain that the task isn't fatal.
Exactly.
Fair.
You signal to your nervous system that you are engaging with the environment and surviving.
And then what happens?
Your brain then catches up to your behavior. It realizes, oh, we are doing this now, and it starts deploying the necessary neurochemical.
The dopamine.
It releases dopamine, which gives you a sense of reward and focus. It releases mild amounts of adrenaline to keep you alert.
Wow.
That chemical cocktail is what you experience as motivation and readiness. The emotion is a biological response to the action.
Let me throw another analogy at you, because I think it perfectly captures the visceral reality of this sequence error.
Bring it on.
Think about the universal experience of jumping into a cold swimming pool.
The classic universal scenario of dread.
Exactly. You are standing on the concrete edge of the pool in your swimsuit. There's a slight breeze. You dip your big toe into the water, and it is freezing.
Freezing.
Your sympathetic nervous system immediately flares up. Your brain is screaming, do not submerge the body in this. It is hostile. It is too cold.
Right, the amygdala is firing.
So what do? You stand there on the edge, hugging your own shoulders, shivering, overthinking the temperature gradient.
You try to psych yourself up.
You bounce on your heels, you are waiting for the feeling of being ready to get in the water.
And in the history of human swimming, does anyone ever actually achieve that feeling of readiness while standing on the dry concrete?
Never. It's a biological impossibility.
Yeah.
You never feel ready while you were standing on the edge.
No.
You could stand there for 4 hours, conceptualizing the water, analyzing the chlorine levels, and the water will never objectively look warmer or more inviting. The feeling of being ready to swim, the sensation of actually enjoying the water, of your body acclimatizing to the temperature so that it feels refreshing rather than shocking.
When does it happen?
That feeling only arrives 3 seconds after you have completely submerged yourself.
That is a phenomenal mapping of the concept.
Right.
Standing on the edge, hugging your shoulders is the high-level stall tactic. Dipping your toe in and analyzing the temperature is the infinite receding horizon of perfect preparation.
You are telling yourself the story that the sun needs to come out from behind a specific cloud, or the wind needs to die down before you can safely jump.
But the unavoidable physiological reality is that the only way to adapt to the water is to be inside the water.
Yeah.
You have to willingly endure the brief, sharp agony of the plunge in order to earn the reward of the swim.
So what does this all mean for the person listening right now?
Good question.
The person who has a daunting project, a difficult conversation, or a major life pivot sitting in front of them, looking exactly like a freezing cold, uninviting pool.
It means that starting messy, starting scared, starting cold is literally the only functional way to start.
It is the only way. And if we pull back and look at the broader implications of this for our daily lives, it is an incredibly liberating realization.
It really is. It shifts a massive weight off your shoulders.
Because if you can accept on a foundational, bone-deep level that you will never feel completely ready before you begin something meaningful, you are suddenly freed from the exhausting burden of waiting.
The waiting room is permanently closed.
The waiting room is closed, the magazines are thrown out, and the receptionist has gone home.
I love that. You no longer have to waste massive amounts of emotional bandwidth monitoring your own internal state.
Constantly checking the thermometer of your confidence to see if it has hit the magic, arbitrary ready mark.
Exactly. You can acknowledge the presence of the fear without letting it dictate your behavior.
Right.
You can say to yourself, I feel intensely uncertain, my stomach is in knots, I have vastly incomplete information about how this will turn out, and I am going to take the first step anyway.
Because you finally understand that the competence, the confidence, the feeling of mastery, those things are not hidden in a self-help book.
They aren't buried in a spreadsheet or a strategic planning document.
They are forged entirely in the fire of actually doing the work.
They are the reward for taking action. They are never the prerequisite.
Yeah.
It is very much like driving a car at night on a rural highway. Your headlights only illuminate the next 200 feet of asphalt.
You cannot see your final destination.
You cannot see the intersections 5 miles down the road. But if you drive those illuminated 200 feet, the lights will automatically reveal the next 200.
You figure out the precise path by moving forward on it, not by sitting in the driveway demanding a satellite map of every pothole.
Which loops us all the way back perfectly to the 12 words we started this entire conversation with.
The perfect moment is a story you tell to stay stuck.
Yes. If we make the conscious decision to stop writing the story, we automatically stop being stuck.
We stop demanding green lights from the universe. We stop hovering on the edge of the pool, and we just jump into the cold water.
We accept that the messiness, the anxiety, and the friction of the start are not bugs in the system.
No, they are the required features of forward motion.
And in doing so, we completely reclaim our agency. We stop waiting for the stars to align, and we start building the rocket ship with the tools we have right now in the garage.
We do it even if we don't know exactly how the propulsion system works yet.
We trust that the friction of building it will teach us what we need to know, and we will figure out the rest in orbit.
I love that. Figure out the rest in orbit.
Yeah.
Let's pull all of these threads together and wrap this up for you, the listener, into a concise, actionable summary.
Good idea.
Our mission today was to dismantle an illusion, and I think we have successfully taken a sledgehammer to the foundation of it.
Absolutely.
We learned from our incredibly brief but profoundly potent source material that the perfect moment isn't a meteorological event you wait for. It is a myth.
It is a societal misconception that we actively use as a sophisticated disguise for our own biological and ego-driven fears.
Waiting for the stars to align is not prudence. It is paralysis masquerading as planning.
We also dug deep into the psychology and the neurology behind this stalling.
The hardware and the software.
Right. We established that the extremely logical excuses we make, needing more time, needing a better microphone, needing more research, are not objective truths.
They are fictional narratives.
Stories we actively tell ourselves to calm our amygdala and protect our egos from the vulnerability of failure.
We choose the predictable comfort of being stuck because, to our primitive brains, stuck feels significantly safer than being exposed to the unknown.
And perhaps most importantly, we completely flip the script on motivation.
We establish the physical and psychological reality, that the feeling of being ready is a mirage if you are searching for it before you begin.
Emotion does not precede action. Action dictates emotion.
Readiness is a neurochemical reward you only get to experience after you have overcome the static friction, crossed the starting line, jumped into the cold water, and committed to the momentum of doing the work.
And as we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought.
A prompt to chew on.
Exactly. Something to think about as you go about the rest of your day or as you sit down at your desk tomorrow morning.
Okay.
We've spent a lot of time analyzing the theory of action today, but theory is entirely useless if it isn't applied.
Very true.
So I want you to take a hard, honest look at your own life right now. Identify the one specific thing you are putting off because you have convinced yourself you are waiting for the stars to align.
You know exactly what it is. It's the very first thing that flashed into your mind the moment they said it.
Yes. Here is the question I want you to carry with you.
Ready.
What happens if you completely abandon the need to feel ready and just take the smallest, ugliest, messiest first step toward that thing today?
What would that single step look like if you gave yourself permission for it to be completely imperfect?
A phenomenal, genuinely uncomfortable question to sit with.
And maybe the answer to that question is the exact spark that finally gets your car out of the driveway.
You don't need the blueprints to be flawless.
You don't need the universe to give you a sign.
And you certainly do not need all the lights to be green.
You just need to put it in drive and hit the gas. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mechanics of starting, the illusion of readiness, and the power of rewriting your own story.
We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Coffee Break. If this conversation stayed with you, you can find more episodes here on the channel. Until next time, take care.